Hey everyone, welcome to Tony for High Schoolers Killing God. Tony for you. A little while ago, I covered my picks for the best and worst the Shin Megami Tensei series had to offer. Shin Megami Tensei was the original set of games before they decided to make a spin-off called Persona, originally all the way back on the PS1. Then they decided to make Persona 2, Innocent Sin, and then Eternal Punishment, which were all popular games in their own right. But the series only really hit its stride with Persona 3 on the PS2, and then the rest is history. Despite being a much younger series in the grand scheme of things, Persona has a lot of games under its belt. Now, I think it's only fair to give the newer and more popular series its own flowers by ranking the absolute best and worst Persona has to offer. While the best games in this series are very easy to explain and mostly pretty agreeable, the bottom three have some interesting picks and one that's fairly new. But before we get into it, I want to talk about today's sponsor, Figgies. Figgies are pop magnet collectibles of pixel art versions of characters you know and love. When Figgies reached out to sponsor me, I was actually pretty excited. I always enjoyed these small stands and figurines, very compact and easy to display, and they asked me what line I wanted. I said basically anything Persona and SMT related. Well, they pretty much sent me every single one they had. As you can see, I already opened a few, but inside you get some neat goodies. Taking it out of the box, you get the pixel art itself, each one affixed with two magnets that you can snap onto the background itself. And the best part is, each background is double-sided. And these things are tough as nails, let me tell you. Just fit the background onto the stand and plonk the pixel art right on it, and there you go. You have your Figgies ready for display. Checking out the website, I was actually shocked at how much they have. Obviously you know Shin Megami Tensei and Persona, but they also have Banjo-Kazooie, Sonic the Hedgehog, Silent Hill 2, Mega Man X, and so much more. Collectors beware though. Figgies has an app where you can scan a QR code that comes with the box and officially log every Figgies you own. Big thanks to Figgies for sponsoring the video. Check their link in the pinned comment down below. And without any further ado, let's get on with the video. My pick for the third best Persona game is a double feature of Persona 2 Innocent Sin and Eternal Punishment. I'm grouping these games together because they are, for one, directly linked chronologically, with Eternal Punishment being a direct sequel to Innocent Sin, but also because both of them are so integral to each other story-wise that pretty much you have to play one right after the other to get anything out of it. Despite them being so linked story-wise, you would be mistaken for thinking they play the same. If you're unfamiliar with the original Persona series, i.e. Persona 1 and 2 duology, they are more traditional JRPGs than the Neo-Persona games. There are no social links and there is no calendar system. It's simply a straightforward trek to the end of the game. That isn't to say there's no depth to it though, as the narrative and characters are just as, if not more, deep than the newer games themselves. Rather than keeping development of the characters behind the optional content, the entire narrative is a complete package where every single individual has their time to shine over the course of two amazing JRPGs. Once again, not to knock the newer Persona games, but there are a handful of characters in each of them that I just didn't care for much. Persona 5 has characters like Oya and Mishima, Persona 4 has Shu Nakajima and Sayako, and honestly a good portion of Persona 3's social links are quite lackluster. Persona 2 Duology, on the other hand, has every single main character and even a good portion of the side characters all being incredibly well fleshed out and developed. I suppose that's mostly due to the lower quantity of them throughout the games, but a tight-knit, well-constructed story really goes to the character's betterment. In Innocent Sin, the main character is Tatsuya Soo, an average high school student with a sick motorcycle. Starting off, you're hassled by a group of students, but after a while are struck with a strange voice explaining, "I am thou, thou art I." Words that should be familiar to any Persona fan. Eventually, you're saved by the principal, who, on top of looking clearly evil as hell, the students all seem to fear him. Getting called to see a teacher asking about you, Tatsuya explores the school, and the charming yet uniquely odd writing is on full display as you talk to the other students, ranging from normal high school gossip to borderline insane ramblings, not to mention a good portion of them are completely bandaged up. Finally, meeting with the guidance counselor, you are interrupted by Lisa Silverman, a fellow classmate and maybe even a love interest who is shocked by you wearing your school emblem. You see, this is the real crux of the game. In this world, rumors have a lot more power than you might think. More on that later though. Eventually, you're challenged to face a rival school's gang who kidnapped a female student of yours. Of course, as the hero, you have to save her. Showing up though, it's a lot more lighthearted than you might think for a kidnapping. The girl is happily eating the gang's food, and in fact, the leader of the group had no idea about this kidnapping. Introducing himself as Aikichi Michel and quite possibly the best character in all of Persona history, the group actually just wanted to start a band with Tetsuya, and well, they thought committing a crime was basically the only way they could get you to show up. Understandably, Lisa makes fun of Aikichi, which triggers a strange transformation in him. Aikichi summons his persona, Radamanthus, which triggers Tetsuya and Lisa to awaken to their own personas, Volcanus and Eros respectively, all while the amazing battle theme is blasting. Sadly, this scene gets cut short as they all pass out, summoned to see Philemon in the dream world. He explains personas to the group, the mask in which we use to traverse the world. But he also explains the main crux of the story and the reason this game is so unique narratively. You see, remember before about the curse of the emblem Lisa mentioned? Well, it all sounds like your average urban legend, but due to some strange influence on the world, depending on how widespread the rumor is, it simply becomes true. No matter how strange, benign, or dangerous, if enough people believe it, reality bends to make it so. This can manifest in gameplay as spreading a rumor that Chinese takeout places secretly sell high-powered firearms to minors, or that beasts of legends roam around the forgotten landfills and abandoned factories of Japan. Once the party wakes up, Lisa wants to put that theory to the test by trying the Joker game. Legend has it that if you perform a certain ritual that involves you calling your own cell phone, a being known as Joker shows up. Needless to say, the strange man that appeared in everyone's dreams wasn't lying, and Joker appears. No, not that one. Supposedly appearing to grant one's dream, if you aren't quick enough to tell him that dream, he drains the very life essence out of you. Aikichi's gang are turned into shadow men, soulless beings who cannot rightly be called alive. Joker then goes on to explain how ideals only cause pain, and he's simply saving them from a life of anguish. Oddly enough, this Joker seems to know Tetsuya's name and has a bone to pick with him to boot. Completely wiping the floor with you, even with your personas, he's about to finish the party off when he's shocked that you and your friends seem to not have any idea who he is. Falling back, Joker promises to return when all of your memories resurface. Only then will he finally feel justice. That's where I'll end the story summary for now, and honestly, I can't in good conscience go into a summary of Eternal Punishment, since as I said, it's a direct continuation of the first game, and even a slight explanation of the story would be enormous spoilers. The gameplay is pretty standard JRPG fare, with less of a focus on party placement compared to the first game, and much more on synergies between spells used by party members. To overcome the challenges in the game, fusion attacks are necessary and uncovered through experimentation, or just by looking them up. Innocent Sin is pretty much a cakewalk in terms of difficulty, but Eternal Punishment was the exact opposite, with me getting stumped on even the first few bosses. Once you meet the game where it is, however, it becomes a lot of fun, and Eternal Punishment even had me literally yelling in excitement as the final boss went down. First time I did that since I was a kid. The art style is probably my favorite in the Persona games. Shigenori Soejima knocked it out of the park with memorable yet grounded character designs. I don't really know how to describe it, since it's so different from what the artist would later go on to do in Devil Survivor and the Digimon games, but it's just older anime, I guess. Unmistakably charming and memorable. The music is also some of the best in the series, with everything from hard metal guitar riffs to some of the most groovy, chill tracks that really fit the surroundings. Shoji Meguro never misses. That's enough of me singing this game's praises though. Whether it be on the PSP with the remakes or the original PS1 games, this duology is well worth your time. The third worst Persona game is one that really surprised me when I played it. Persona Q2 was incredibly disappointing. I really enjoyed the first Persona Q. The Etrian Odyssey inspired game was a fun little dungeon crawler with an admittedly bland story. But with the cast of Persona 3 and 4, it's hard not to make a charming game in at least the minute-to-minute dialogue department. For some reason though, Persona Q2 just messed things up. I absolutely won't say it's the fault of the characters from Persona 5, but the cast does seem a little bloated. The gameplay is pretty much the same, but it feels like every 5 seconds you're blasted with the most paint-by-numbers, tropey dialogue watering down every single character you know and love to the most meme interpretations of themselves. Whenever you reach a dead end in this game, it feels like there's a 50-50 chance you're about to be jump scared by an incredibly long conversation between Chie talking about meat or Akihiko talking about protein. It could have been interesting to see fun dialogue between the main casts of these beloved games, but it genuinely feels more like a fanfiction written by a child than an actual licensed game release. Do you remember when Kanji was violent? Yusuke was broke? Or when Shinjiro was mean? Oh, well, that isn't all their character was, of course. Each and every individual I mentioned is incredibly nuanced and memorable in ways that mean so much to so many different people. Chie was my first love interest when I played the original PS2 Persona 4. Shinjiro's storyline hit me in places I never thought a Persona game would take me. And Yusuke is a tragic hero whose charming antics lead to an emotional arc resonating with many people. This game just boils them all down to the one-note descriptions I jokingly mentioned before though. Maybe it's due to there being just so many characters in this game that every conversation has to be a one-note joke, but I was really hoping for a little more with this massive crossover. I wasn't expecting a masterpiece or anything, but they got this massive cast of Personas 3 through 5 and they really don't say anything interesting to each other at all. You seriously can't go 2 feet without someone tweening across the screen to spout some watered-down dialogue. Imagine if in Persona 5, at the end of every single room, Yusuke popped in and said, "I have no money," or Ryuji said, "For real? For real?" And the other characters had to respond to that every single time. Well, that's basically Persona Q2. In Persona Q1, the main cast of Persona 3 and 4 hear a rumor regarding a bell tower chiming leading to death on the day of the school festival. When they go to investigate, they get sucked into an alternate dimension version of their school where 2 characters, Zen and Rei, reside who seem to have lost their memories. From there, the player must investigate alongside the cast of the other game route they didn't choose to help the 2 lost souls retrieve their memory and return back to their original worlds. A serviceable story, all things considered. In Persona Q2, the protagonist of Persona 5 is exploring mementos, where Morgana veers out of control into a movie screen. Exploring the dungeon, they eventually find out they're in an alternate dimension appearing to be a movie theater. Each screening can be jumped into a la Mario 64 to explore and resolve thematic conflicts regarding the casts of Persona 3 through 5. In the theater, an obviously evil woman named Nagi and her schoolgirl friend Hikari reside, and the player must explore the land and escape. Not much different in the way of narrative, but immediately you can tell this game takes itself a lot less seriously and almost feels like an episodic TV show, with each movie being another silly adventure loosely tied to the main cast rather than a dungeon to be explored in pursuit of a goal greater than just getting it over with. With that, the writing, as I mentioned before, is a lot more of an avenue to tell jokes or memes rather than actually good character development. It really feels like it was written by someone whose only exposure to the series was a few playthroughs on YouTube and fan comics. The only upside is that the music in both games are awesome. Steer clear of Persona Q2. The first one is alright though. The second best game in the Persona series is going to sound insane if you haven't played it. Persona 4 dancing is absolutely amazing. Now, I know what you're thinking. Tony, how is a rhythm game spin-off of Persona 4 one of the best? Well, it's a lot more than initially meets the eyes. For many reasons, this is the best spin-off of Persona we have ever had. For one, it's canonical to the timeline, unlike Persona Q where it's inconsequential at best and non-canon at worst, and a far departure to the story of Persona 3 and 5 dancing, which are quick cash grabs with basically no story at all. The only competition is Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, and while that's good, it doesn't hold a candle to Persona 4 dancing. Dancing All Night allows you to see how the characters have grown from the ending of Persona 4. Taking place roughly a few months after the epilogue of the game. This game also introduces a new character that was mentioned in Persona 4 proper, with Kanami Mashita, better known by her idol name, Kanamin. Instead of the new character introduced in the spin-off being a bland plot device simply meant to push the story along, it really feels like the writers cared a lot about how the game would fit into the timeline. It's evident there was a lot of love poured into the game's narrative. The story of the game is Rise Kujikawa, a main character in Persona 4, returning to the idol industry with renewed vigor thanks to the actions of you spending time with her and the resolutions of the game itself. She invites her friends to come back to the old town of Inaba for the Love Meets Bonds festival. Since Rise is an idol, it only makes sense that she would perform a dance number for this occasion, and her closest companions will be right there beside her for the Love Meets Bonds aspect of it. Already a believable reason why the main characters would be practicing for dance at all, with their own unique styles and personalities shining through. Arriving at the dance studio, they're met by Kanami Mashita herself, and she reveals that her idol group, Kanamin's Kitchen, are all strangely missing. The party then learn of a strange rumor that if you go to the idol group's website at exactly midnight, you'll be shown a video that displays a recently deceased idol. pretty spooky, and after Naoto hears it, the detective in her shines through and she just has to get to the bottom of it. Naoto, Rise, and Yu Narukami all visit the website late into the night and get sucked into another world, much like the Shadow TV realm in the original game. But things are different this time. Surrounded by shadows covered in ribbons, they hear a strange song coming from a disembodied voice, brainwashing all who come into the world to form a bond with her. Under the effects of the song, any in this world could not bring themselves to commit a violent act at all, taking away their once only means to defeating the shadows. With no means of communicating with words or fist, there's only one way to convey one's feelings: with dance. An MP3 player drops to the ground, playing Time to Make History, which distracts the shadows. Seeing them transfixed by the music, Yu, Naoto, and Rise break the spell, cursing the shadows, and return back to the real world after an amazing dance number. The investigation squad is formed once again to discuss the events that just transpired. But in the meantime, Kanami is visited by the voice, revealing it's an alternate world where her fellow idol group mates are being held. The main party arrives just in time to witness her being sucked into the strange dimension. And just like that, the stage is set for this absurd yet wonderful game. It's no hyperbole to say I fell in love with it right away. The character writing, the pacing of the story, and the music are all top-notch. The most important thing to have in a rhythm game is good music, of course, and the remixes of the original Persona 4 tracks, along with some classics brought over, are all amazing to listen to. The choreography of Persona 4 dancing is so iconic that even people outside of the fanbase have definitely seen Yu Narukami doing the specialist dance once or twice. Each character has their personality shine through with their choice of moves. Yukiko is more regal and elegant, Chie is explosive and filled with kung fu movie martial arts, Rise is an idol and just hits the cutest poses, and Kanji is slightly awkward yet powerful in all of his movements. You can go over each dance with a fine-toothed comb and just see the character in each one bleeding through. There's just so much love poured into it. Each dance also has a chance of being accompanied by another character through the partner system, and even these are designed so well. Every single one has unique interactions between the characters depending on who is leading and who is supporting, with some of the absolute best being Nanako Dojima. I return to this game a few times a year just to enjoy some of my favorite characters and music cared for with such love. The only downside is that it isn't on PC at all. My hope is that they port it over sooner rather than later, but that might be wishful thinking. Please, if you have the means, check out Persona 4 Dancing. Piggybacking off the previous entry, my pick for the second worst game the series has to offer is Persona 3 and 5 Dancing. This section will be a bit shorter, since imagine all the good things I mentioned about Persona 4 Dancing, but gone. The amazingly well done choreography, the faithful character portrayals, the amazing remixes and track ports, and well thought out and fulfilling story that meaningfully progresses the narrative of not just the characters, but the series as a whole, just gone. Persona 3 and 5 Dancing pretty much have no story at all. Since they came out at the same time, the story of both games are the exact same. Essentially, the respective Velvet Room attendants of both games saw Persona 4 Dancing and argued as to which universe had the most talented performers. Bringing them all into an alternate world where their minds would be wiped of the occasion on exit, they practice and perform dances to indirectly compete with each other. If all that sounded stupid and pointless, well, it is. The characters are forced to dance with no real reason other than to prove some stupid and petty vendetta the Velvet Room attendants have with each other, and all this is happening during the events of their own games. So they interrupted their important missions to save the world for this. The characters are a lot less involved in the narrative, and much like in Persona Q2, they're watered down versions of themselves. Primarily due to the fact that this happens during the events of the game, their character arcs are not yet finished, so they're in this strange transitional state and act in a very shallow manner. Not taking the whole thing very seriously, because, well, it isn't a serious situation. All that aside, I could forgive the narrative being bad if the gameplay was fun. After all, it's just a rhythm game. While it does have the exact same gameplay roots as Persona 4 Dancing, I'd be lying if I said it was even close to the quality of the original. The choreography is boring and the songs drag on forever. Each track is strangely remixed to add EDM beats or jazzy additions that make each one overstay its welcome, and the characters don't even come close to the skill on display that the Persona 4 cast did. With the exception of maybe Haru and Mitsuru, these people are just not good dancers. Before you say anything, I'm not a hater. Persona 3 and 5 are some of my favorite games of all time, and the characters are a big part of why that is. Despite what the internet would have you believe, the tone of these games are pretty serious, unlike the slower, small-town approach that Persona 4 had. Persona 3 especially had some extremely disturbing and memorable moments for each character. With that, it makes a lot less sense as to why you would have Shinjiro Aragaki and Ken Amada dance the way they do. For a perfect example as to where this game fails, just look at the dance Ken Amada does to Mass Destruction. It just encapsulates everything I hate about it. The remix is awful and the dance is just ridiculous. By virtue of this game having the tracks of Persona 3 and 5, it's not all bad. Specifically, the Persona 5 music itself is solid. But get this, each of these two games has tracks that are literally just recordings of live performances from Game Symphony Japan. Yeah, you heard that right. This game has basically YouTube videos in the game instead of actually animated dances of the characters. And yes, you do have to play them to beat the game. It's not just an optional thing. There's a reason Persona 4 Dancing is its own game, and 3 and 5 are sold usually as a bundle for cheap. These games are quick cash grabs that I struggle to play through. Avoid these games, unless you're morbidly curious or they're on deep sale. The best game Persona has to offer should be no surprise if you've been watching the channel for a long time. I think Persona 4 is the best game ever made. Everything from the small town setting, the mystery themes, and the amazing atmosphere and music are the epitome of what Persona is to me. For most Persona fans, usually the first one you play is your favorite. This stays true for me as well. Playing this game for the first time over the course of a cold winter, day in and day out, made the time fly all those years ago. Originally, I played the PS2 version, shout out to Chie's old voice actress, and I couldn't put it down. It's responsible for making me fall in love with not only Persona, but SMT as a whole, which in turn led me to making this very YouTube channel. While every aspect of it to me is top-notch, what solidifies it as the absolute best is the characters. From the main party to the social links, I was absolutely in love with every person I interacted with. Despite the game constantly being described as a Scooby-Doo mystery, the core of it is actually quite dark and adult in its themes. From Naoki Konishi, an ostracized student dealing with the death of his sister, coming to terms with the fact that, through no fault of his own, he lost someone so important to him forever. Eri Minami, a mother that married into an existing family who has complicated feelings of hatred as well as tenderness for her stepson. And Hisano Kuroda, an old woman tackling feelings of self-loathing for coming to hate the man she married due to the dementia he suffered in his twilight years. All these characters I mentioned are just optional social links. That doesn't even go into the main party you traverse the game with. Chie, the kung fu-loving tomboy learning to value herself outside of her friendship with the popular girl Yukiko. Kanji accepting his true nature as an artist despite being typecasted as a high school delinquent. And my one true waifu, Naoto Shirogane, learning to open up despite being forced to mature at a very young age due to both her parents passing and being a child prodigy in detective work. All these unlikely friends are brought together by the player, Yu Narukami, in the search for the culprit of a series of murders taking place throughout the small town of Inaba. I've talked about this game a lot and gone through it just as many times, yet still getting to the end fills me with a sense of longing I can't fill until I boot it up again. No other game even comes close to the level of comfort and intrigue this game brings me. Starting off in an odd-looking velvet room, more like a limousine than a room itself, you are bound by a contract, fated to stop a coming calamity. Shaking off the strange dream, you find out that your parents are leaving on a business trip, so you're dumped off in a small town in the care of your uncle Ryotaro Dojima and the cutest little girl of all time, Nanako Dojima. All the while, as you're getting settled in, disturbing news reports of serial killings sully the otherwise tranquil small town atmosphere. At the end of a long day, you finally go to bed, but find yourself in a strange fog dimension where you awaken to the power of Persona. Shrugging off the strange dream, you go to school and are introduced to the first of the main cast. Getting along great, they eventually tell you of a strange rumor that if you watch the TV at midnight during a thunderstorm, you'll see your soulmate. Turns out that rumor was only somewhat true. What you see on the TV is not your soulmate, but one who's fated to die, and soon. Reaching out, Yu is pulled into the TV. Eventually wrestling himself free and going to bed, the first thing Yu wants to do is show his friends his new TV delving powers. Along with Chie and Yosuke, they go to the mall and dive in. As it turns out, his other friends have this power as well. Now armed with the knowledge that the ones appearing on this midnight channel are indeed the victims of the strange serial killings, you and your friends are truly the only ones that can get to the bottom of these strange murders. This world is dangerous though, so in order to awaken to the power of Persona, your friends must face their shadow selves and come to terms with the aspects of their personality they would otherwise wish to keep hidden. Only after facing themselves may they seek out the truth and save their town, and eventually, the world. Every part of this game works in sequence to create the best RPG ever made. The facing of their inner base selves conveys aspects of a party member not easily shown in regular character writing, leading to every investigation squad member being much more realistic and grounded. The motivation to keep moving forward is believable in their innate need to at least try to save those who they see on the midnight TV, as well as the fact that they're realistically the only ones that can do it. Their continued bonds as friends only growing as they come closer to saving the town they hold dear is truly a beautiful thing to behold. If you haven't played Persona 4, you owe it to yourself. Not just as a gamer, but even if you're someone who just enjoys a good story. Please, experience my pick for the best game ever made. On the flip side, my pick for the absolute worst game the Persona series has to offer is one that is a truly sad thing. Persona 5 The Phantom X is a heartless game and my pick for the bottom of the Persona barrel. This game is a shameless beating of the Persona 5 horse, and not even in a benign, easily ignorable way, but a genuinely infuriating one. Imagine, if you will, Persona 5 but without the complex confidants, hateable antagonists, fun to explore dungeons, and constant fulfilling progression. Oh, what's that? Those are what actually makes Persona 5 a good game? Well, yeah. This game has none of it. For those of you that don't know, P5X is a gacha game, and it has all the marks of a terrible one at that. Time gating you can pay to circumvent, horrible power creep, annoying dailies, unintuitive team building, and a million different currencies and upgrade materials so that the average person will have no idea what's going on. I'll save you the story summary since it's literally just the beginning of Persona 5. This game is less of a spin-off and more of a blatant plagiarism job. So much so that it's the exact same school, basically the same dungeons, same traversal mechanics, same confidant system, kind of. And believe it or not, on release, most of the characters themselves were from Persona 5. At least most of the good ones. Remember how the first antagonist of Persona 5 was an intimidating high school PE teacher who, through his connections as a former Olympian, abused male students and harassed female students, all while being praised as the most important member of the faculty? Well, the first antagonist of Persona 5X is a former pro baseball player who bumps into women on the subway because he is a misogynist. If that wasn't stupid enough, the reason why he hates women is because one of your friends, Motoha Arai, who's also the best designed character in the game, hit a ball he pitched when she was like 10. He failed flexing on a child and became a complete crash out. I can't even begin to describe how stupid this character is. He was so stupid, in fact, that he became a huge meme on Twitter, as the subway slammer hit everyone's feed as the based gigachad woman hater he is. While I hated the antagonist, his dungeon made me hate the entire game itself. It's basically a fusion of the Madarame Palace and the Kamoshida Palace from Persona 5, except it goes on forever. I get the need to pad it out since it's a gacha game meant to be played every single day, and too much progression would make people, finish it. But it's just too much. Constantly having to do annoying puzzles to get gacha rolls and picking up chests that contain trash weapons for characters you probably don't use or maybe don't even have. All the while, the UI screams to you to spend more money and do more of the infinite battles that test your patience or wallet depending on what kind of payer you are. Player. The confidants are especially bad, since there's no meaningful calendar system. You're gated by stamina in each day, which would be fine, but there's no time limit to this game, so the calendar system is just nothing. In Persona 5, if you don't beat the dungeon by a certain time, you'll get a game over, but in this game, there's no such thing. So to counteract this, while you can progress the days over and over with no downside, there's a time gate for the time gate, so you can't. Your stamina for confidants are per login, not per rest. You can pay to refresh it though. The only upside is there's no stamina for traversing mementos or doing the main story itself. It doesn't even progress time. But this is little comfort, since as I mentioned before, the main dungeons suck, and mementos... In this game, Mementos is pretty much the exact same as Persona 5, in that it's a boring series of long railways that oftentimes lead to nowhere, but in this game, every 5 seconds there's a locked chest that makes you beat a handful of enemies to unlock and pretty much gives nothing other than checking it off the map, or trash cans that make you smack into them like 5 times for equally terrible rewards. There are some field bosses occasionally, and sometimes they're fun, but oftentimes they're just puzzle fights that require a very specific team to beat, and if you don't have them, well, get to rolling on the gacha, chump. I know all things considered, this game is pretty standard gacha affair, but this shouldn't have existed. SMT had its own gacha that was possibly even worse than this, but at least it was a unique story and SMT as a whole. This is specifically Persona 5, and it's a shameless ripoff at that. Avoid this game like the plague if you're an average Persona fan, and if you're a super fan of Persona 5 specifically, pretend you didn't even hear about it. It won't be a nice romp through familiar territories or characters like some of the other spin-off games. It'll be a bastardization of something you love with nothing in mind other than emancipating you from your hard-earned cash. Persona 5 Strikers is better anyway. Well, that covers the best and worst the Persona series has to offer. Let me know your picks for the best and worst, or what you thought of my list in the comments down below. And while you're down there, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. This is a series near and dear to my heart, so it was really hard to narrow down the top 3, but the bottom 3 were admittedly pretty easy. Special thanks to VideoGamer75, Matt M, Just a Middleman, The Digital Dutchman, Goose Kebab, Patty123, Kalos, Arctic Mirror, Jem Morales, Carehos, Paul Torrio, Masker2196, Mojo Bad World, and many more for supporting the channel on Patreon. If you'd like to support, check the link in the description below. Thanks for watching this Persona Best of the Worst, and I'll see you in the next Tony for You. Have a good one.